Hi, welcome everybody. I welcome you to my presentation on title GELAB, a Matlab tool for grammatical evolution that is being presented by myself, Muhammad Adil Raja, and on behalf of my supervisor, who is Connor Ryan from University of Limerick in the Department of Computer Science and Information Systems. Um, so the overview of my presentation is that first of all, I'm going to introduce to you give you a brief introduction on grammatical evolution, and secondly, I'm going to talk on GELAB, and secondly, I'm going to talk about grammatical evolution. I'm going to talk about then about how GELAB is implemented uh, in Matlab, and then I'm going to present some results and a live demo to you guys about that, and eventually, I'm going to talk about some additional features of GELAB, and eventually I'm going to conclude my presentation. So, in this presentation, we present a Matlab version of libge. Libge is a tool, is a very famous library for grammatical evolution that was developed by Connor Ryan and Mike O'Neill in University of Limerick back in 2000, early 2000s. Um, it is a tool that was proposed for automatic programming. G has been widely successful for in innovation for different kind of problems, for evolution of controllers, for symbolic regression, and other tasks in machine learning. Its implementation traditionally is in C++, and because of the fact that the C++ code can be prohibitive for use by a wider variety of scientists, we have actually developed it in MATLAB. So, and GELAB, the MATLAB version, is now available in on GitHub, and this is the link. You can download it from here, and you can use it for your convenience. So, a little bit about grammatical evolution. Grammatical evolution is a type of an evolutionary algorithm which basically does automatic programming, such just as genetic programming. However, it is different from traditional tree type genetic programming in the sense that it uses a genotype to phenotype mapping, and it has a biological inspiration. In biology, every living cell is made of chromosomes, which are in turn are made of DNA and RNA, and eventually these map to proteins, and eventually they have a phenotypic effect, which is a behavior or a physical effect. Similarly, in grammatical evolution, as it is a coarse emulation of just that, what it does is that it takes a binary string as a genotypic representation of the genotype of an individual, uh, and eventually that is mapped onto an integer string. Then we take rules of a context-free grammar specified in a Backus-NOR form, and we use those production rules to map the integer strings to um, computer programs. So in grammatical evolution, what basically happens is that we have an integer string, which is the genotype of an individual, and we use the production rules to create a phenotype that is actually a computer program. So this is what grammatical evolution is about, and this is a schematic of grammatical evolution. What it does is that you have to specify a language, have to give a problem specification, and eventually what grammatical evolution does is that takes the data of the problem, it takes the language specification in BNF form, and runs a traditional integer-based genetic algorithm on the back end to generate a large number of genotype, and use the BNF grammar to create the phenotypes of those. They are tested in using the problem specification, and solutions are actually evolved generation by generation. So to this point, I'm assuming that my audience has a background in evolutionary algorithms, so you basically know a little bit about an evolutionary algorithm. So this is a schematic of a typical mapping of how genetic algorithms, grammatical evolution basically works. So here is our binary string, that is, you know, chunks of the binary numbers are taken to create integer strings or integer vectors, and we specify a BNF grammar over here, and the mapping is done for each of the production rules to one of the for each of the integer in the array to one of the production rules, whichever suits them, and then eventually we create corresponding computer programs. Here is the class diagram of grammatical evolutions mapper. So what the mapper does is that it has the mapper interface, and from which we extend a grammar object, and from that we extend a context-free grammar object, and finally we extend a grammatical evolution grammar object and grammatical evolution sensibly initialized or a grammatical evolution object with sensible initialization. And so this is basically the major object that we are using in our Matlab version. What we have done is that first of all we have converted the C++ code into Java code, and because of the fact that it is easy to invoke Java objects in Matlab, and also because Java was a bit more convenient at that point for us, and so and we maintain this into our GELAB engine. So this is the mapper that we have actually converted from libg, which is in C++, to Java. So calling Java code from Matlab is simple. Mat has functions named as Java object and Java method that allow Java objects and methods to be called from Matlab respectively. We simply lever these methods. Once a Java object or a method is called from within Matlab, the layer renders it to the Java virtual machine, JVM, for execution. Every installation of Matlab maintains JVM for the purpose of running Java code. We have created two main functions to invoke GE. These are called loadGrammar.m and genotype-to-phenotype.m. The loadGrammar function invokes a GE grammar SI object, which is written in Java, and it subsequently reads a BNF file and loads the production rules of the grammar. This object can be passed to the genotype-to-phenotype function along with the genome. As the name suggests, this function maps the genotype to phenotype. However, it leverages from genotype to phenotype method of the G grammar object. The genotype to phenotype object returns a computer program in the form of a string that can be evaluated using MATLAB's built-in function eval. The result returned by the eval function can be used for subsequent fitness valuation of the individual. In order for the whole program to run successfully in MATLAB, we implemented a simple GA initially. However, we also now have more variants of the genetic algorithm that we are using at the back end. The simple GA performs the typical evolutionary steps. Functions are created for all the genetic operators such as crossover, mutation, and replacement. Fitness valuation is based on mean squared error. Linear scaling is proposed in two. Is also implemented. Moreover, the nature of the software is such that user-defined schemes can be easily integrated with it. It is extremely easy to invoke the toolbox. In order to run GLab, simply run gmain or GE in a loop. So now I'm going to give you a small live demo of how it is actually going to work. So what we do is that first of all, in order to run GELAB on the MATLAB prompt, we invoke parameters. Or we invoke this function GEFiddle params, which are basically control parameters of any evolutionary computing system. Over here we specify how many runs do we want to have for our experiment, and then how many generations. So I'm specifying 100, and population size of, let's say, 5,000, and BNF file is sr.bnf. I have a lot of BNF files, and you can create your own as well depending upon your problem. Please enter the training data file. What I'm going to do is that I'm specifying train_x.txt as my input file for training, and train_x_y.txt as my file for output for training. I'm not specifying any test data at the moment. Do I want to use adaptive operator? I would say yes, I want to do that. I would say I'm not doing hybrid optimization at the moment, or maybe I can do that and here it is. I'd say I have 6 coefficients right now, and so these are all the kind of different kind of control parameters that I can specify, and it's asking me if I want to use a simple GA or a compact GA or a MIMO GE using simple GA. So I'm specifying one. Do I want to specify hierarchical fitness functions? I'm saying yes. Is lower better or no? I'd say yes. And I have to specify a length for the genome and 1. And it's finally asked me if I want to use generative caching, and I'm saying no. So this is the way how you can actually specify your parameters. And once you're done with the choice of your parameters, what you can do is that you can save them using uh, your own as a mat file. Params. These are just dummy parameters that I'm saving. However, now what I'm going to do is that I'm going to use parameters that I already actually have loaded for a different kind of a problem, which is also once again a problem about symbolic regression. I'm just going to run this and see how it is. Just started the parallel computer toolbox of Matlab and starting running that. So, and in a while we are going to begin to see how evolution is working. In the meantime, what I'm going to do is that I'm going to come back to the slides and tell you about the rest of the things in it. So what I've really done is that essentially that I basically invoke the what I've done is that I invoke the GE fiddle parameters function, which allows me to set the parameters, and eventually I'm passing those parameters to GE in a loop.m function. So this runs GE for a complete run. So this is quite easy to, and this is a fact about GELAB, that it is quite easier to use as opposed to other traditional software such as ECGA or even libGE. So and so, as I have said, the software information does not require even typing anything on the MATLAB CLI. Once you've set the parameters, you can save them and you can just load them for later use and pass them to GE in a loop. It can be done simply by running the, you can may even hit the run button, and this is trivial in MATLAB. So finally, what I'm going to do is that I'm going to talk about results a little bit. What we did was that we took data from speech quality estimation, which was published earlier in 2008 in EuroGP, and what we've done is that we've set the parameters to number of runs equal to 50 and number of generations equal to 100, and the population size of 1000. Selection was 2-number selection. Tournament size was 2. Operators was crossover mutation. We have been using scale MSE for fitness valuation. Survival was elitist. Function set composed of plus, minus, multiply, sine, cosine, logarithmic functions, power, and less than or greater than. Terminal set was composed of random numbers, P563 features, and eventually we have this curve. This is basically showing us the the fitness history of the best individual of 5 runs, and for up to 100 generations, this is telling us how GE has been doing that. So GE has because of MATLAB's plotting utilities, GE has its own tailored plotting tools that can allow you to see different kind of metrics as a function of evolution. And for instance, this is a time history plot that is basically telling us how each generation of the run of a particular run took time to compute actually. So this is what it is telling us. And additional features of GELAB, there are quite a lot of things that have improved since our writing of this paper. For instance, GELAB has been integrated with compact genetic algorithm. It allows genotype and phenotype or an individual caching, such as subtree caching proposed by Martin Kaiser, which basically allows us to for faster running of GELAB, so that whenever we have created a new individual, we first of all try to check if it is already present in the cache, and if this is present in the cache, we take its value from the cache. So, moreover, GELAB also can evolve solutions for MIMO systems. For instance, GLab is integrated multi-tree GP, which allows an individual to have multiple trees so that they can output multiple values as opposed to a scalar value that can be used in evolution of systems such as controllers for unmanned aerial vehicles as well as driverless cars. We also now have hybrid optimization, in which a hybrid algorithm such as simulated annealing or genetic algorithm is integrated with grammatical evolution, and grammatical evolution tries to find the structure of the underlying program, whereas the hybridized algorithm or simulated annealing or genetic algorithm, for instance, they try to tune the constants of that program. We also leverage from the parallel computing toolbox of Matlab. We also now have other features which I'm not talking about right now. So the conclusion is that GELAB is a convenient way to use GE research and development. It is far easier to use than libGE. The user only needs to specify the data for which the software should be run. More keen users can tweak the code with a lot more ease. It is easy to integrate with third-party software too. The inherent abilities of Matlab to gather data and plotting make it a viable choice for easy, useful, and repeatable research. We are benchmarking GELAB on Matlab 2018 and 2017 at the moment. We have already tested it for bugs, and they're virtually it's bug free. However, we are benchmarking it for performance at the moment. In the future, we expect GELAB to be used by a wider research community. The expected users are, of course, who would be dealing with optimization problems in their work. And this is the conclusion of our presentation, and I'd really be happy if you have any questions to me that you want to ask. Thanks indeed.